Hey, it's Moopy, and today I wanted to go over this gameplay of a Masters main tank, just so I can give them little pointers, talk about stuff, and maybe you guys can learn some stuff too just by watching. So yeah, this is someone I coach, and I've coached before multiple times, so I have experience working with him. His name's Think Donkey's really cool. I think he streams on Twitch as well, and I think this game is around Masters Elo. So right off the bat, we're playing Orisa Hog versus Ryan Sigma, so a big difference between the tank lines, but Orisa Hog not bad on defense. I wouldn't really recommend playing Hog, like, in the current meta, especially with snipers like Ashe being really oppressive, but I think it's okay here. I'm gonna turn down the sound real quick. I think it's a little too loud for spectating. And I'll do it, like, around here. Okay. So yeah, right off the bat, we see that our Ashe got picked up here. Let's see if we could have prevented that, or if that was our fault in any way. So this shield's kind of like a tight angle, and so is that one. I think one that's just wider would have been better. Kind of like how the Ryan's facing. That's a good pull on the Ashe. I think right here, like, it's been a while without a shield, so yeah, like, we're kind of hard peeking for a while without a shield. So it's not really surprising that one of us ends up getting picked. I would recommend telling your team to either stop peeking for a second until you get the shield, or just make the decision to back up, because you really want to back up to this position back here at a time that isn't really risky, so you don't get picked during the process. Because this is a really, really strong position, simply because, like, this is, like, really the only other way to get in besides main, and it's not a very easy choke to get into. So yeah, like, that's why it's really important to back up there safely when possible. It's a good thing that there's a mercy in the game, so that mistake isn't really punished. But yeah, so it looks like in this current position we still have some decent positioning. You know, like, in the front line with the Orisa and Hog and Ashe on a off angle on the top is really good. It really provides a lot of pressure at this angle here, forces their Sig to look at them. I would probably see if the Ashe could, like, sneak in this angle as well, just because, you know, the Sigma's shielding off both of them with one shield, so it's kind of like two birds with one stone. But yeah, I think overall, though, against this comp, it might just be worth it to back up all the way here, especially in a game of ranked where things aren't super coordinated, and holding up here, which could be good, it could be very impressive because of these high grounds, but it's pretty risky just because, you know, it's, like, really hard to help your teammates in this situation, and it's hard for them to get to you. So if, let's say, their Genji wanted to go up here and started to 1v1 or like 1v2, 1v3 your Ashe, like, you can't really help them, and I don't know, it's just safer to back up earlier together and not risk getting picked. But yeah. So yeah, it looks like they're taking control of the high ground. Oh, let's see what happened in the front line there. That's not good. Let's play that back a little bit. So I think we just ran out of gold. I'm gonna switch to his POV here. So yeah, let's just play back the last couple seconds, see what happens. So yeah, it looks like we just don't have shield up when the Ashe gets picked, but that's something we need to communicate to, you know, to make sure that doesn't happen. That's why I like to call going back really early, just so that I don't even risk that. That was a good. I think we might have just canceled res with that pull. I'm not entirely sure. I saw something happen there. Let's see what happens. So we get the pick on the Ana. I'm not sure where that was. Yeah. That canceled res. I'm not sure if that was on purpose, but that was really, really nice. Let's see. So I don't think you needed to use gold here. The Ryan gets half HP, which is like a result of his Ana getting picked off, and the Hog on the high ground, on top of this really fat pull. So everything so far is fine. Like, shield in the pull is a really good, you know, combo to actually push in off the pull. This obviously cancels res, which is really good. Except right here, I could see, like, the pressure that you feel is the Ryan about to walk on you, right? And, you know, obviously a lot of Orisas, they want to preemptively gold, you know, before you take that damage. But when you use shield and pull at the same time, you really want to at least save your gold if possible. You know, going through your entire rotation as Orisa at the same time it makes it really hard to cycle through and like maintain the space. It makes it so you have to either commit to that, fight that you're in, and either get a bunch of kills, or you're just gonna get owned after all your cooldowns are gone. So that's why I like to try to cycle through them and at least have like one of them up. Even just having pull up can be, you know, you can peel them all off you. So especially with Reinhardt, like you just pull them away from you. But yeah, I think this might have been a mistake, which is okay. Like, it's okay to, use a cooldown a little bit, like, I don't know what the word is, but a little bit more freely when you have such tempo, like in really good space, because they can't really punish you as hard. But against Reinhardt, having no cooldowns as Orisa usually means that he'll eventually catch up to you and kill you, because you just simply can't run away from him, in time. We can see the shield broke and that the gold's about to run out, and I would really recommend backing up at this point. It doesn't seem like you look for it early enough. I would probably have started walking back like about halfway through the gold, something like that. Let's see what happens here. So now we have the shield and pull rotation back up. The Ryan shield's getting really low. Yeah, that's a really good pin. That's probably what ends up getting the pick. Okay. So yeah, that wasn't entirely, I'd say, your fault. That Ryan had a really good pin and identified that you didn't have gold. But let's say that you did have gold, from earlier. Then maybe that could have been prevented. Or maybe he wouldn't have done the pin at all. So you would have just broken his shield and eventually whittled them down. Looks like they've taken this high ground back too. So I probably would have just recommended backing up all the way to here at some point. Just because, you're not using this high ground anymore with the cart being here. And with them being up here, they really can't LOS you, and they can't really see you if you do play over here. It's like a really, really tight angle that doesn't feel great. And on top of that, it can easily be pulled and punished, or just like punished by this little high ground here. It's really easy to contest this high ground. That's interesting what's going on here. That's interesting. Okay, but yeah, so that's going to be the first death. I don't mean to like microanalyze everything, but I've worked with Think Dunk a lot, and a lot of big ideas I've already talked to him about. So this little micro stuff is a little bit more, I'd say, like applicable to this situation. Especially in ranked, when like you can't really communicate the macro ideas and get them off with your team. So a lot of your effectiveness comes down to your own cooldowns and the space that you can maintain and take. So let's see what happens on the retake here. If we do even need to retake it, it's possible that the team just wins here. Gonna skip ahead a little. I do this all the time too, where I just wave for no reason. So that's a good identification on the Ashe getting antied. I'm just gonna let this play through and then critique it after. Yeah, so this fight unfortunately feels like if it does end up being a loss, it does unfortunately feel like a lot of it came down to the Orisa play here. And I'll talk about why afterwards. Yeah, that's unfortunate. So just going into the fight, like this is not a really big deal, and it's not not the biggest point I'm going to comment on here, but when you are coming back as Orisa, or you're just trying to get anywhere quicker, shooting continuously, it really slows you down a significant amount. So I just recommend not just spraying out here before you get close. Like right here, you start shooting really early. I would just recommend walking up, get as close as possible. Be the tank in the front line that they need. Get in front of this Mercy, maybe get to the side of Genji here, and maintain that space. But yeah, shooting. I understand you're trying to get picks like this Ashe here, but it's really not your job, and the Orisa damage is really not too significant to make that worth it. So as we can see, the biggest part about this fight that's coming up is Nano Blade, right? So it may seem that this fight might be in a losing position already because the Ash got picked. They have all these angles around here, and you're retaking as well. So it probably doesn't feel great. But with Nanoblade, it's always winnable. Like as long as the team is alive. Unless the Genji can get like 4, 5, 6 picks. Maybe less usually, but it has a really really high potential. But the thing is that if it gets kills and the team's already dead, it's not worth it. At that point, it's really not worth it because you're going to use Nanoblade 2 ults and still not win. So what ends up happening, you end up staying back here the majority of the fight while your poor Ana, I don't even know what she's trying to do at this point. I mean, your Hog's all the way back here, which is just, a ranked game moment, but your Ana at least was in your field of view, so I really would have liked it if you just like ran to her and tried to do anything you could to protect her, especially because Nanoblade is our win condition here, which is hard to identify, but when you're walking back like this, like you have a really long time to just hold tab and just, do a little bit of light analyzing about what the fight's going to look like, and, you can keep an eye on the kill feed as well to see how the fight's going. Oh, that was a really nice sleep because that allows her to get back. Still though, like you are way too far back in comparison to them. At this point, this Ana wants to be running behind you and not running towards you. You should probably be at least at this corner because Orisa's love corners. Tight LOS here. At least the corner, or just like walk into the Rhine and go through your cooldown rotation so that he looks at you. You absorb all the damage, and you can still maintain the space. Because right now you're just way too far back, but it's alright. It may have seemed like a little too of a lost fight. I'm not sure what your team was communicating, but if the Nanoblade was being communicated about before, then it's really important that you maintain the space and like take as much space as possible, like be a huge distraction so that he can easily build it and get it off and get huge value. Yeah, it's so unfortunate anti, but at this point, it's not really a big deal. I mean, a few different things could have happened here. The really important detail is that you didn't have Nanoblade at the beginning of the fight, so you kind of want to play around that. Either you can get it by being aggressive and making an opening that the Genji can use to build the last bit of blade that he needs. And take a little bit of damage so that Ana can build the last bit of nano she needs. Or you could just back up pretty far, contest last second, and do the same thing. They're both fine options in my opinion because the first one, it's good if you understand what the macro play is, like that you're going to try to get Nanoblade off. And this is what you're trying to do. You're trying to enable these two people on your team. But, backing up and living, it's like one of those things in ranked, it like reduces the risk of getting picked. Waiting till the last second to contest is a really popular just, I don't know, tactic, if you want to say that. Just because it just reduces the chance of getting picked before. And like, I don't know, the card's also as close as possible, so you don't really have to cover that much distance when you actually go for it. It's just good in general. It's not really something that's like debated on or confusing. But yeah, it looks like your Mercy ends up getting the nano, which is unfortunate. Yeah, she definitely just walked in front of him, or just like hovered down off of her ult in front of him. And that was probably the deciding factor, considering he gets the blade off and just instantly gets owned. The Mercy gets the Glock out and doesn't really do anything. But overall, like, I just, for what we're concerned about, I don't like to see how we got picked, like, way too early into the fight before the Nanoblade gets off. Wow, look at this pull, dude. They really buffed pull. That's crazy. No, I'm just kidding. That's just a bug. But yeah, I think the two biggest things is keep in mind what your goal is when you're retaking, what space you want to eventually take once you're back, and maybe what like the tempo of the fight is about to look like, based on like this Ashe getting picked and what ults you have and that they might be using currently, like this Bob. But yeah, overall, it's not like too big of a deal. I just think you were probably tunnel visioning a little bit here, and that was about it. So we're still on Orisa Hog, which is kind of unfortunate. Just because they have a really good counter for that. Like with res is a counter in itself. Like you get the pick, you walk away, and then it gets res. But on top of that, they have Sigma, which is just a really oppressive counter because he can actually do things while shielding off your hooks, shielding off your off angles, and he can maintain high damage of his own. I think it would have been nice if you would have your own Sigma here. Or you could be Reinhardt as well and just take that Rein duel. Rein with Hog actually isn't terrible. Just because Hog in general isn't terrible, like even here it's not terrible because he has his own self-sustain and really good shield break. So he's useful in that way in no matter what comp. It doesn't always need to be with Orisa so he can get pull hooks. So it looks like they're backing up here, which is good. This would be a really good time to set up on like a little positioning here so we can poke them while they come in. It's kind of hard on this map. I think this is a fine position here, this corner. The reason a corner like this is really strong is because you can see someone like this, McCree. Oh man, what is this on my screen? I'm going to rewind a little bit. So when we take an angle like this, it's really, really strong, especially, like it's very obvious here why it's strong. This wall is basically a shield, right? For people like this McCree trying to take off angles and like this Sigma. And so you reduce your damage down to the front line, right? Which is just Reinhardt. And Reinhardt has to actually be on top of you to do damage, right? So while the Reinhardt has to cover this whole distance to get to you, and you've zoned off any off angle, you have so much time to break his shield and whittle down his resources. So by the time that he's actually on you, he can't really do anything. And if he does try to do something, he'll just get his shield broken and eventually get whittled down. This is a really nice shield here. Kind of small, but all right. Let's see what actually happens in the fight, though. I like that bongo. Maybe it could have been a little bit earlier just to reinforce that idea of spamming down the Ryan before he gets in because of that distance he has to cover. But it's not terrible timing. I'm just being nitpicky. That's a terrible bob. I mean, it's okay, I guess, because it can hit the Ryan, but it was almost pretty bad. This is a very scrappy fight. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's hard to expect. Oh, my. Yeah, I don't think there's much you could have done there. I mean, you had a good positioning, good ult usage. It's really hard to tell what the comms are like here. Obviously, I can't tell. I'm just gonna rewatch this, see if there's anything else that we could have done better here. So, in certain situations, I would recommend bongoing, where you can stay in LOS of it the whole fight. But when you have Hog, using a wall like this for cover for your bongo is totally fine. Like, you don't have another shield to shield it the way that they do. So the immediate pressure on the Rhine is really good. I think this is what should dictate the rest of the fight, is that their Rhine is completely zoned out. He has half health and extremely low shield. So he's either going to demand a lot of resources like this nano to get back in, or he's just going to get easily poked out. So let's see what happens. Okay, he gets nanoed. He's still 1 HP. Nice, he gets owned. That's good. The gold is good. I was just thinking when I saw that gold in the Sigma ult, just be wary of that. If you have Baptiste, not really. If you can survive a Sig ult even with Ana, and no Baptiste on your team. With any healer really, as long as you can gauge the amount of damage you're gonna take and stay above half health while you're in the air, you don't need to use gold all the time. But, it's very safe and sorry. It completely removes you from the ult. It can even give you high ground if you just want to fly up into the air and shift and then go somewhere. But, I was saying with Baptiste, the lamp and gold, a lot of the time they get overlapped. So I was just making sure to comment on that. Just watch out for that. Ash is really low. I'm sure you called that. That's why the Genji was able to follow up. I actually think that I'm not entirely sure, but Dink Dunk was telling me that him and his Genji duo a lot. So I think that this might be his teammate, the Genji, that he's possibly doing with. So the Sig used to eat here is probably the next target to pressure. I think overall you guys did a really good job in this fight of pressuring the right targets and following up on the right targets as well. This McCree flank is just ridiculous, and it works out. Somehow your Ashe dies as well. I just want to see how that happens, to be honest. See if we could have done anything about that. Oh, wow. She just gets owned. I think... Did she get one shot? Oh, why is he taking me back to spawn? Yeah, I didn't see, but it looks like she got one shot. Didn't really seem like there was anything we could do. Another example of why... Oh, we actually do have Sig now. I think he swapped in the spawn, but yeah, that was another example of why I think Sig would have been better. You know, who knows, could have shielded off the high noon and stuff like that. And kept pressuring the Rhine at an off angle. Overall, I just think Orisa Hog is like... It's good in theory. Like, a pull hook combo is good in theory, but like very rarely are you actually going to get that off because of shields, because of, you know, things that can save them after the hook as well. Luckily, you know, Brig overheal has been removed recently, so that makes Hog a little bit better, because he doesn't have to deal with that extra HP. This is a good off angle by your Sigma, but he's walking out way too early, so they're easily able to focus him and poke him out. He decides to take a different off angle, a safer one, which is good. At least he's not completely giving up off angles. That's good by your Ashe. This is going well so far. You guys came in from good angles to be able to retake this. I just want to explain though why. I think it's a good opportunity just to explain in general. I know I've talked to Dink Dunk about this before, but just in terms of like this recording or whatever, I just want to talk about off angles at some point. So, okay, I'm not the best at rewinding. Let's see. When was this Sigma about to walk out? Okay. So, overall, the reason why an off angle is good is because of the attention that it can draw, and, you know, it alleviates a lot of pressure from, let's say, like the main stack over here. Especially, let's just imagine that all 6 of their teammates are standing here, and the Sigma walks out here, and all 6 of them, or at least 4 to 5, something like that, look at him up here, right? So while they're doing that, you know, we have 4 or 5 people here, easily able to win the spam battle, just because they don't have as much pressure on them as they will, simply because of that off angle. So that's why, that's like in a gist why off angling is good. It's like not that simple, but if you want to like boil it down, I think that's one of the biggest reasons why it's good. And you know, Sigma off angling is especially strong just because of his range, his self-sustain, his own shield, his personal shield is really strong, so it helps him keep that off angle for a while. And on top of that, it allows him to pocket someone else when and if they want to take, when or if they want to, I don't know what the wording is, but if they want to take that off angle with him, then he can shield him. A good example of that would have been this Ashe going up to the high ground with him. But like I said, he does this way too early, and their own Ashe is at a good, you know, high ground angle here, so she just, you know, easily pokes him out. She would have been doing this anyways, just to try to fight for the high ground, but what we would have liked to happen is for us to be actually capitalizing off of this damage that he's taking, and off of this is at least 4 people that he's taking the attention of right now. The Sig, Ryan, Mercy, and Ashe. So if we were able to, let's say at the same time that he does that, walk all the way up here into this corner, we would be able to do that without using a lot of our resources at as the main stack. So by the time that we get here, we'll have things to actually use to kill them. An example of that might be like using nade. Like let's say right now, let's say we all went main, and just tried to walk up to this corner as 6. we would probably, just because they're all going to be staring at us, and it's kind of like, you know, two birds with one stone. Like, you spam one person, you get a little bit of spam on someone else. So it's like really effective for them. So we're obviously going to take a lot of damage. We're going to force a lot of resources. Something like Annonade. You're probably going to have to use Annonade just for the rotation to get to this corner. Alternatively, you could have someone like off angle up here and pressure damage, you know, take resources, demand less resources overall. And then by the time you get to this corner, maybe you don't have to use nade and you can go for like a pull nade. That's just like a niche example. But you could do things like, you know, window. Let's say they were holding this space here. I'm going really in depth here, but I'll be done with this point soon. Let's say they're really holding this space here as 6. We walk out main as 6, and we have window. We're probably going to have to use window just to get out of this choke in the first place. How do we take it? Maybe an off angle here, maybe up here. Then maybe we alleviate a lot of pressure, and we don't have to use window, so we can actually use it once we actually get in the fight, and we have a better chance of getting value. But yeah, that's just a little rundown on off angles. It's not like a perfect explanation, but that's, you know, what comes to my head in this example at least. But yeah, like I said, he goes too early, forces his own resources. I don't, you know, I said that it was good for him to take, you know, this off angle. It's good for him to take any off angle, but when he has the mercy beam, like, I think he should just go back up here for this one, because if he can take control of this high ground with this Ashe, and, you know, we can freely shoot down at people like this Kree, this Anna, who really can't get shielded at this point. I mean they probably could, but this high ground's really open, so if we can eventually walk out here, it's just super strong. And like I said earlier, you know, if you can pocket someone, like that, it's just really strong. I think there might be something with my recording. I'm gonna check that real quick. Alright, I'm back. There seemed to be a lot of drop frames in the last few minutes of this, but I think my audio got through, so hopefully the main point got across about the off angles. I also realized when I went to look at the recording that I've been recording for quite a while, so I think I'm gonna wrap this video just for defense, and I'll do offense, or I'll just do another map at another time. But yeah, I just don't want to go for too long in this. It's already been about 30 minutes. I think I've talked about some pretty useful stuff though. Wow, that pin was something else. Wow, he actually got him too. Let's check that out again from his perspective. I love to see a pin nanoblade. This is like always nice to see, because it's a pretty high risk play. It's like high reward as well, but you give up like all the space in the front line to go for it. At certain points it's worth it, because, you know, you'd lose anyways to a nanoblade, but it's still risky, because if you miss and you just get nanobladed, then you look kind of weird. But he got it off. That's probably why this ended up going in their favor. Let's just see what we could have done that fight, maybe, at the very least. Okay, so I think there's like a general theme that I want to talk about in the way that Think Thug is playing here. And I think it just has to do with being a little too passive. And I understand it's the Ryan matchup that's probably resulting in that. But Orisa is really, really, like, just good in so many different ways. And she can act as like a Reinhardt in some ways, just with the sustain. Like, Reinhardt doesn't have a golden, but, you know, she does. And pull, you know, stuff that can help her maintain the front line. Like, right here, I think your positioning is just way too far back. Even though you shielded back here, you know, and playing behind your shield, which is okay, I don't think your shield should have been here in the first place. And I don't think you should even use it at this point. You should just identify that your Sigma is so far up here. You know, these high ground angles are being taken, and that you want to be, you know, up here in the front and have them all looking at you. So these people feel less pressure, and you can, you know, have better visibility, go for better pulls. Yeah, this is just unfortunate. Like I don't think that they would have won if that went differently, because this Sigma is already half HP. This Ana is completely alone. They do still have this high ground, which is a problem, but it's not something that can't be taken back or just like negated by the Nano Blade or just by this Orisa shield here. I think what probably would have ended up happening is he would have went for a few ground targets and then went back up there with this Nano Blade. Yeah. At this point, it seems really hard to come back in this fight just because of their positioning. I'd recommend trying to play around this corner a little more as well as like a base point. Even though this high ground is kind of oppressive, like hopefully someone's fighting for it like these people were. So you can at least hug this corner and not be an LOS of a lot of angles. Like they really have to be up here to hit you, if that makes sense. So yeah, it looks like we're approaching the end of the round here. Unless you guys get a fat hold. Your Ashe, unfortunately, seems to be getting picked a lot in the beginning of fights. Doesn't mean that we can't be doing things better. But that is just, you know, something that happens. I just want to check out the retake here, see what the pathing and stuff looks like. I do that too. Shooting the little fire extinguisher. It seems like, I could be overthinking this, but it seems like when you're walking back and, you know, doing little things like that, it seems like you're not putting in enough, and as well as like what ends up happening afterwards, after you get back to the retake. I want you to put a little bit more thought into what your goal is when you retake, because retaking is not easy. I know I've talked to Dink Dunk about it before, but like the defense advantage is really strong, and when you're retaking, they basically have that defender advantage, and by that I mean just being able to hold, you know, high grounds like this, hold positions like this, and the other team has to take that position from you. So naturally, they have to take a lot of, you know, spam to get in. They have to use resources to take that space. So that's just like the defense advantage in a nutshell. But that's why, you know, something like this is, it's just like, I'm not entirely sure what the goal is. Peaking with like half your team, you know, you're not gonna spam anyone out. You're not taking any space. Whenever, you know, this space was already ours because it's a very easy choke to just hide behind. So I think it would have just been better if you saved your resources for when it was actually time to poke with your team, or to take some space, even to like walk out here and shield what the Bob is right now. Looks like the enemy team is keeping up really good tempo with positioning and that Ashe ult. I would hope that your Sigma, who had been taking good off angles, would be going for this one on the high ground. I think it's a little hard to take by yourself, but it's a nice little corner that you can like jiggle peek from and spam them off of. I just think it's really important that someone at least tries to fight for this high ground. Either that, or you all try to get like under them, you try to pull them off, you just try to reduce that advantage that they have. Right now, this doesn't look like a pretty picture, like just seeing you walk out by yourself, but we'll see what happens. That was a good pull. That's exactly what I just said. That pull is like really hard to do because you have to really thread the needle to get them off the high ground. It's a big pull as well, but at this point your team's a little staggered and doesn't seem very possible to win. Yeah, this just didn't seem like a well planned out fight, and you guys like really didn't have the ult advantage at all. So yeah, I'm just gonna play this last part back and probably wrap up this video for now, or for now, as in, you know, until the next video. But I just want to say, like, on this last retake, I think this is like a general idea I saw throughout the game. When you're retaking, just try to have like a better like end goal in mind for what space you want to take and what ults you want to eventually get off. I think also you need to value corners way more. I think you're playing too out in the open with your shields, which I understand, like, the shield feels like it's protecting you, but, you know, off angles like this make it really easy to just shoot above or behind over the shield. And yeah, I don't know, when the shield actually breaks, you have no natural cover, so it's just not good to play out in the open like this. I would just recommend, like, taking a corner like this one, or when you were fighting for point B or the second point, whatever you want to call it. I think this corner, you know, would have been really, really strong. First point, like this is also second point, and this corner was really, really good for you. But when you're playing here, you weren't valuing this corner as much either. So I think try to establish those, like, baseline positions for Orisa on a lot of maps, and I think it'll help you out a lot. And usually it's not too much learning. Just try to start with corners. You know, try to, like, look at maybe, like, Overwatch League Orisas, maybe people who stream as Orisa and a really high level, and see where they default position, and then, you know, just do what they do. It's usually not that that part of like starting at a corner like this and, like, taking a corner like this. That's just kind of, like, common. It's not like something that's very, like, debated, if that makes sense. It's just something that comes with experience and stuff like that. But yeah, besides that, I don't really have much else to say about this fight. You guys obviously have, like, no ults except your Ashe ult, which she's coming back from getting picked first again. It's not a very ideal Bob. It kind of gets caught by this corner somehow. But yeah, it doesn't really seem like much you could do here. I'd say, you know, go for those corners for yourself. Maybe communicate. You know, can we take that high ground somehow? You know, especially when you pull that Sigma off the high ground. If your Sigma was going for the high ground of his own here, then that would just be completely free at that point. I'm not sure if you would have won though, because, you know, the ult advantage is so disproportionate in this fight. So it might have not made a huge difference. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helped you guys out.